Hi, I'm Angela and welcome to my channel, Befriend and Tend. Today I want to talk about friendship. Many adults find that as they get older, their social circles get smaller. So at some point you may find yourself feeling a little lonely. And if this sounds like you, I've got some great tips. Before we get started, I want to show you this chart of social circles. Now you are in the center, and then the first circle around you is your BFFs and your closest friends and your spouse and certain family members. And then outside of that, you have your good friends, and then you have your casual friends, and then you have acquaintances. And beyond that, everyone else is a sea of strangers. And the reason this is important is because people cannot skip circles. They have to move through the other outer circles in order to become a good friend or a BFF. Now granted, some people you might have an immediate connection with them and they might move pretty quickly through those circles, but more often than not, it's pretty slow going. You may have a really strong connection with somebody and they are just too busy or too swamped. Maybe they're taking care of young kids and an elderly parent, or maybe they are working full-time and they're just not going to be able to spend as much time with you to nurture the connection. So the first thing I would suggest is to be patient and to understand this is a process, that if you stick with it, you will move people through those circles. The other thing to keep in mind is that the lonelier you are, the more flexible you may have to be in your definition of a friend. For example, don't think to yourself, oh, I really want a friend to go to lunch with who's like me, who's college educated, who has kids, who's a stay-at-home mom, who likes to run. Then your pool of people is going to be a lot smaller than if you just say to yourself, I want a friend to go to lunch with. And friends can be surprising, and friendships can evolve in the most unlikely of ways if you're open to it. I think most kids naturally sort of understand this, but then when they go to school, they get socialized to think that friends are basically their age and their gender. I homeschooled my kids for a couple of years when they were in elementary school, and people used to ask me about their socialization. And my daughter, because she didn't have these preconceived ideas of what a friend was, considered everyone on the street her friend. So after she finished her schoolwork, she would go outside and she would start knocking on doors. In one house, there was a 2-year-old baby that she liked to play with. And if the 2-year-old baby was taking a nap, she'd go to the next house. They had some dogs that she liked to play with. And if they weren't available, then she would go to the next house. And there was a girl who was her age. And if that girl was in school, then she would go to the next house. And there was a college student. And so she would knock on the door and see if she could play, because the girl used to make jewelry with my daughter on the deck. So she always found someone to play with and to engage in because she was just looking for companionship, and it was easy to find something that she enjoyed doing with different people on the street. So if you do not have many people in your good friend or your BFF circle over here, the easiest way to get people into those circles is to nurture the casual friends and the acquaintances that you already have. So reaching out can feel a little uncomfortable, but it has the promise of a really great reward. So it's definitely worth doing. And the discomfort of reaching out, I think, is less extreme than the feeling of being lonely. So one of the best ways to reach out to someone is to suggest an activity that fits within the context that you know the person. So for example, if you chat up somebody at the gym, then you could suggest maybe going on a run or a bike ride or something that's related to fitness. Or if you know someone from book club, you could suggest going to a movie that is based on one of the books that you've read. And if you don't have a specific context like that, it's always sort of a safe bet to suggest a lunch or a coffee break. So you can decide how often you want to reach out to people. I would at least, when you do the reaching out, fire off some emails or text to at least 3 or 4 people, so that way if one of them says no, you will have 3 other people who might turn around and say yes. So don't take it personally if you don't get a positive response from someone. And the other thing about reaching out is that it may be like 4 or 6 months later, and that person might reach out to you. This happened to me actually when I was starting my photography business. I reached out to several local photographers, and initially I only heard from one of them, and she became one of my best friends. The other three I did not hear from, and it took, it took a couple of months, and eventually I did become good friends with all of them. So even if that initial request goes into the void, you've planted a seed and it could bear fruit later on down the road. Now, while you are nurturing these acquaintances and casual friends, it's always a good idea to start bringing more strangers into those circles. And the best way to do that is to follow your curiosity and think of an activity that you're really interested in pursuing or that you already enjoy, and to find a group that engages in that activity. For example, it might be a bicycling or a running club. It might be a book club. It might be a chess club. You could also take classes in something that you're interested in, like photography or art or public speaking. And another great idea is to volunteer. Volunteering helps you feel connected more broadly to the community, but it's also a great way to meet people without feeling awkward because you're actually busy doing something while you're chatting and making small talk. Another way to add more people into that acquaintances and casual friend group is to make more of an effort with the people that you're in close proximity to. For example, if you live in an apartment building and you're always running into the same person at the mailbox, maybe suggest having a morning coffee at the cafe down the street one day. And if you have a dog, get outside and walk it. Dog walking is a great way to connect with people in your neighborhood and with other dog walkers because everyone likes to walk their dog with a friend. Another thing you can do is actually organize a group yourself or host something in your home. Many years ago, I organized a scrapbooking group for my local community, and that went on for several years. More recently, I used to host monthly art gatherings in my home, and those were really fun. Everyone who came learned a new art or craft skill, and we would have food and wine, and it was just a really good time. Finally, I urge you to consider the benefits of online friendships as well. They're a little more limiting in that you can't actually go out and experience an event together, but they also open up a huge range of possibility. For example, I've become really good friends with a woman who lives in France. We meet up for coffee and co-working every week, and it's just been a really rich and fruitful friendship. I've joined online groups like Nest Labs, and that has also connected me with people all around the world, but even somebody who only lives an hour away, and we've gotten together several times for activities, and that's also been a really rich and rewarding friendship. I also belong to a couple of Facebook groups around creating YouTube channels and photography, and I feel like I've made some strong bonds there as well. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting the like button. I'll see you next week.